But still, Johnson was vulnerable to this pressure from the right that he wasn't taking the war seriously. So he was really looking for something that would force Republicans and Democrats to rally to him. He wanted some incident where he could then wrap himself in the flag and say, majorities in Congress have given me support to fight this war, and I'll fight it. And that was the Tonkin Gulf incident. It basically arose because the CIA had this program of sending South Vietnamese patrol boats into North Vietnamese waters to kind of reconnoiter the North Vietnamese coastline and kind of trick North Vietnamese radar stations into turning on their radars, so then they could be like pinpointed by American ships at sea, so that then they could be shelled and destroyed, and also we'd have a better sense of their whole kind of architecture. And so it was one of these South Vietnamese patrol boat things. They were set upon by North Vietnamese patrol boats that came out to attack them, and then the Maddox and the Turner Joy, these two American ships, kind of came in closer to give support to these South Vietnamese patrol boats that were never mentioned. They made it sound like these North Vietnamese were like attacking these American like capital ships, right? And in fact, no such attack existed. They never kind of pinned it down. People that flew off the carriers looked down, didn't see any North Vietnamese ships. There were no torpedo impacts or anything like that. So but Johnson knows this because he has real-time communications with his staff where he's like, God, we don't know if they were even there. The Navy might have been shooting at whales for all we know, He knows it, but he needs a sign of North Vietnamese aggression so he can get the Senate and the House to rally behind him, and they do. They give him these massive, the Tonkin Gulf Resolution passes both houses massively, saying the President of the United States can do whatever it takes to defend American servicemen in Southeast Asia, right? Mm-hmm. So this is carte blanche to bomb, to shell, to put in troops. And so now he coasts into the election in November, saying, look, I'm fighting the good fight in Southeast Asia. And by the way, that will stay in force right up until the last year of the war. The Tonkin Gulf Resolution is finally repealed at the very end of the war, when Congress kind of finds its soul and says, like, this is ridiculous. But that's the rationale for all the escalation, is that we're putting in troops to defend U.S. personnel who are there to defend this rugged little independent state of South Vietnam.
So what were the role of intelligence agencies, specifically CIA, within the Vietnam War? I mean, obviously, as I highlighted Gulf and Tonkin, I think a lot of people, we've seen a shift in trust of agencies and that's putting it mildly, over the past couple of years within the U.S. And, this is something people commonly will point to with the CIA, for example. But, some pop culture makes it sound like the CIA was, doing some crazy operations on the ground. Others, don't really even mention them. So just curious, like, what were intelligence agencies' role throughout the war?
They're front and center in this counterinsurgency war. So, like I said, in the Tonkin Gulf incident, their involvement was, they were involved in this covert program to have South Vietnamese ships go into North Vietnamese waters and kind of try to map the terrain and figure out where, North Vietnamese boats were, where their radar stations were, that sort of thing. But like in the ground war, they're very much interested in how best to fight the insurgency. They feel like the army is all sort of kinetics and trying to kill people and blow stuff up, and they're not kind of figuring out this war among the people, right? So that's the CIA's brief. They're also involved, like at the central government and provincial level, analyzing the quality of South Vietnamese leadership. Are these people up to the job? Are they corrupt, or are they honest? Are they governing effectively or ineffectively? One of the things they're most known for was the Phoenix program. The Phoenix program was this idea, it's shrouded in all kinds of controversy, but the basic idea was that you will, instead of pussyfooting around, you're going to go in and you're going to capture or kill as many VC operatives as you can. And, every take any kind of South Vietnamese, province or village, and there's all these different levels of VC. The most important level was the VCI, the VC infrastructure. And these were like the more senior guys who were in charge of taxation, finance, recruiting, indoctrination, and then coordinating, local forces with regional forces, with main forces, and then providing labor, say, to NVA units that were coming through and needed people to carry stuff or whatever. So there were these guys were hugely important in keeping the whole VC network running. So Phoenix was like, we're going to capture or kill those guys. And they killed a lot. But my research for this book, it's unbelievable. It's like most of them weren't VCI.
Yep.
This became another body count scam. So this is like the one, and people who read this, they're going to realize I had to cut out so much because I cut out like 200,000 words out of this book. And there's a lot of detail about Phoenix I had to cut out, but it was just so funny. Because they would send these U.S. inspectors, some would be CIA, some would be from the Army, some would be Marines, some would be Air Force, and they would go around and they'd go into like the provinces and the districts and they to review the Phoenix program and they would check the numbers, audit the numbers, and say, you said you killed this many VCI, show me. And then these guys had nothing. There were no files with like pictures or occupation or physical character. They were killing just civilians. Or maybe low-level VC, like some guy humping a backpack, and then calling them VCI to get credit for another kill in the Phoenix program, right? So everywhere you went, you had this, and yet you'll see in a lot of the revisionist histories, they'll say, "You see, we were winning. We were winning. The Phoenix program was winning. We were pacifying more villages. We had the NVA on the back foot. The VC was shrinking." It's all illusory. You could do, all the numbers were fungible. You could do anything with the numbers, but everywhere you looked on the ground, you could see that they were just gaming the system. If you wanted to get money from Uncle Sam, you talked about how successful you were in killing VCI. And then when you actually looked at the numbers, no, they weren't getting VCI. And another interesting thing was Phoenix was really critical to the war effort. If you removed VCI, you would really take a long step toward winning the war because it was very hard for them to keep the network working if you took out these key players. And the Marines took it really seriously, and they were pretty successful in implementing Phoenix program because it was a CIA thing, but they required boots on the ground to go in and cordon off a village and go through the village and try to figure out who was VCI. And the Army, no interest. And I have scenes in the book where the inspectors, these American inspectors, go out and say, how are you proceeding? General Abrams says this gets top priority, the Phoenix anti-VCI program. Oh, we don't do VCI. We do order of battle stuff. We're just counting the enemy. We don't really get into that. That's the CIA's responsibility, So, the American military doesn't take it very seriously. And again, it gets to do with what are they good at? They're good at fighting. They don't want to get involved in all this other stuff.
Yeah, counterintel.